Welcome to the CX Sessions from the Customer Experience Innovation Institute. Every episode, we provide an innovative perspective on customer experience from the people who are changing your world, one experience at a time.
Welcome back to CX Sessions from Melbourne in Australia. I'm your host, Simon Chris, and joining me today from the Philippines, not where he usually lives, but from the Philippines in a contact center, is Nathan Muniz. Nathan, welcome to CX Sessions.
Thank you so much, Simon.
It's great to have you here. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. As you said, I don't normally live in the Philippines. I live in Florida, in Ocala, Florida. And I make it out here whenever we have special things to do or big projects. Sometimes we have training. And our contact center is located in Cavite, Philippines, in a small community.
And that's the exact reason why I wanted to talk to you today. So there are lots of BPOs and there are lots of BPOs in the Philippines, and I get all of that. And actually, you're the first BPO person that I've had on CX Sessions. And the reason for that is I really want to dig into the model that you're using. But before I do that, a little bit about your story. How did you come to be in CX? How did you come to be in BPOs? I mean, at one stage, you owned a bus company, right?
I ran a transportation company that included motor coaches, large buses, taxi cabs, and wheelchair transportation vehicles.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we started transportation in 2006 in Florida, and just kind of did it all. I had a company that I really admired out of Orlando called Mears, and they own and run all the passenger transportation to Disney. They ran buses, taxis, and larger vans. So I just kind of copied them with their model, and we're about an hour and a half north. So I went the motor coach, taxi cab route. So that was my first taste in business.
Yep.
About 17 years ago.
How did that then move across to be in the CX world where you are today?
Well, people are people. People in Florida are people. And everyone moved to Florida wanting to be in this big sunshine state, but people don't want to work in Florida. So we had a tough time finding dispatchers and finding telephone operators. Our business was growing, and I had a small contact center in Ocala that I ended up taking a lot of calls for a lot of years just because nobody would come to work.
Yep.
So my wife kept telling me, hey, there's contact centers in the Philippines. We should try to subcontract our telephone calls to the Philippines. And I called a couple of places, and I didn't know how many seats I would have needed. And I didn't know anything about I wasn't number one on their list as far as potential customers.
And your lovely wife is from the Philippines, right?
Yes, my wife is Filipina. She lives she's from this community where I'm sitting at right now. So she's been here quite a while.
Let's pivot into that, right? Most of the contact centers that are in the Philippines are, well, there's a heap in Makati and around Metro Manila and some in Cebu and places like that, but not where you are. You're kind of, how close would your nearest competitor call center be?
Solid hour, if that's by car.
Wow.
If you're in a car, an hour. I mean, and if you're having to do a jeepney and a tricycle, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, okay. Not too much competition for staff. That's a good thing. The thing I really like, though, is that, and I want you to talk through this model for people so that they get it, is your model around that impact resourcing, that social sourcing. Where did you kind of describe where you've built this contact center and what it was like and what it is now?
Well, we couldn't find operators, we couldn't fill staff, so we approached BPOs out here. We really weren't getting the kind of attention we wanted. We weren't organized enough to even get their attention, so we started our own BPO here in this small community, and it worked immediately very well. It matched our growth. Our agents started growing along with our business for year after year, and with that growth, we built our own contact center literally from the ground up using local community guys, and that was
Wow.
an undertaking of its own. It took several years to build this facility actually,
Yep.
and
So
when we
local building contractors as well as local employees, right?
oh yeah, I mean it's a group of local guys who know how to build. That's your local contractors. Um,
Wow.
they
And
they they did everything.
what's it meant for the community? Because I'm envisaging a village of a few hundred people, a couple of thousand people. Um, what does an employment facility like a contact center mean for those people?
Well, the history of this community is interesting. This is an affordable housing community, and when my wife and her family moved into this community, they received government loans from an organization called Pag-ibig. And what Pag-ibig does is it allows, working people who can afford a small home to move into,
Mm.
and it provides shelter. So her whole family was here through Pag-ibig, and this entire community was built with Pag-ibig loans. So you have they're 30 square meter houses sitting right next
Wow.
to each other. So that's what this community is based upon. They share a wall. It's called row housing,
Yep.
and we live in this community I live in a row house with my wife when my whole family is here with us, and this community just had its ups and downs, kind of because it was based on affordable housing.
Mm.
So affordable housing can be great, but it can have its ups and downs anywhere in the world. It's kind of that way.
Sure.
And crime had been just it was always here. There was always a crime problem, and it was a crime problem like I had never seen or experienced. Because in the United States, people are very vocal and visual with their crime. You're in a bad area pretty quickly. It's not the most friendly area, and you don't want to be there.
Yep.
Here, it's very friendly, and you don't realize, especially being a foreigner, that you're in a dangerous spot.
Mm.
And then when you spend time here, funny things start happening, and you start getting glimpses of the crime and glimpses of what's really going on. It's something that I was never comfortable here in the early days. It just wasn't. Once you started spending time here, you had an eerie feeling about the area, and that's just how it was. So we had the opportunity to purchase some land because the older generation that built this community, they were getting older and moving out, moving with extended family. So we had the opportunity to buy several pieces of property and turn that into our contact center. And when we did that, we did it out of affordability at first because it was a cheap place to buy land and
Mm-hmm.
an affordable place for us to build our contact center. And when we did that, the area just was rather depressed. There was a lot of abandoned homes right up next to our contact center. And when we invested the money and just made a nice, clean building, other buildings started following suit. And other people said, I want to have a building next to this building.
Okay.
And I guess it was the opposite of dominoes. Instead of each domino knocking one over, each domino was building a domino next to it. And
Wow. So does that mean
next,
other different types of businesses then moved into the area because you'd built this. Oh wow! So what other types of businesses sprung up, and were they supporting your business, or were they just general businesses?
Both. We have a lot of foot traffic because almost all of our agents walk to work. So
Wow.
you've got employed people walking through a neighborhood where they normally weren't walking through. And that just creates a tailspin of activity. So we've
Hmm.
got everything in this neighborhood. There was nothing here. I mean, it was mostly abandoned. Uh, People just hanging out, friendly people, but you knew they were up to no good.
Yeah.
Permanently hanging out on corners, speaking in code and sign language. Um, Interesting sign language too, according to my wife. But people just, and these were structures that were available on the open market. Just nobody wanted them. So when we
Hmm.
built our building and had foot traffic, other businesses just wanted to be here. It was begging for change. And so there's a lot of fresh fish markets here now. Several fresh fish markets, fresh meat markets. There's several rice stores here now, and it's not just for our BPO. The entire community shops up and down this street now, so it sparked a
Wow.
lot of investment from other people.
Yeah. Incredible. And how many people do you employ in your BPO?
Right around 100. So we're not we're
Okay.
not very big at all, and
No,
and
that's still a
we're
big impact in that community. 100 new jobs. I mean, what would
right
they be doing if they weren't working in your call center, right?
commuting.
Yeah.
So we've organically uh, trained and developed, I'd say 30 agents just that had no experience at all. But then we've pulled in talent quickly for some campaigns that sprung up and gotten people that were just commuting, but they'd lived here for a while. So they were doing 2-hour commutes each way, and working here, they only walk 3 or 4 minutes to work. So
Yeah. Wow.
it's giving them a career in this neighborhood and putting time back in their pocket to spend with their family.
And if I leap into I mean, that is just mind-blowingly good. And when I first heard the story about what you were doing in Glasgow, I was blown away. So I've been wanting to do this meeting with you. Yeah, if I jump into the heads of people that are listening, the obvious thing is going to be, well, where did you find a WFM manager? Where did you find a quality person? Where did you find team leaders? Were there people nearby that had experience and were commuting and so were happy to be closer, or did you have to train and cultivate? How did you get past some of those big hurdles?
Well, to start off, which is going to be the biggest challenge, all the employees that began working here were only working for me. They
Hmm.
were all dispatching taxi cabs. They were all dispatching handicap accessible vehicles and dispatching buses. And our taxi cab operation had grown so quickly in Florida that all the employees that first started working here dispatched taxi cabs almost. So with the sudden growth of Florida and our taxi cabs, that growth, you talk about disruption and how great your people think disruption is. Well, I was on the other end of disruption. Our entire operation was when Uber and Lyft came in and just
Yeah.
literally changed the taxi cab industry overnight. And that
Hmm.
was when, oh, okay, we've got a call center with people working in it, not receiving calls, not dispatching taxi cabs anymore. So we had to make an adjustment at that point on are we gonna lay these people off, or are we gonna find them other employment? So that was a decision we made to use the infrastructure that we'd invested in and just turn the tables and go into the BPO industry and offer our services to other businesses. So we had to really buckle down. We had to increase our reliability with backup generators. See, before, if I was the only one relying on this operation, I kind of let things slide a little more than I would a customer. So
Of course.
beginning with just my operation only was a great start because we had some screw ups and some mix ups, but I was the only one affected. So, but I learned, hey, we can't do this anymore in the future for my own good. Then offering the agents to other businesses, then we had to learn how to get into the workforce management, what kind of software that these companies needed, what kind of much better and much more faster computers did their campaigns need.
Mm.
And believe it or not, a lot of that talent is able to be found with a simple job search in this community. There a lot of these roles are here or within a
Right.
walking distance. Just that is the magnitude of what the BPO culture in this area is intense.
Mm.
A lot of people here work for BPOs, and not
Yeah.
ours. I mean, they're commuting.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've spent quite a bit of time in the Philippines, around BPOs and things, and watching whole industries spring up and shift, so that you have restaurants opening
Yeah,
at 4 in the morning and bars opening at 6 in the morning, because that's when people are coming off shift because they're supporting US hours. And it's a freak that so far I've really only seen in the Philippines, that the industries around the BPO kind of shuffle up. So that's amazing. I know that COVID hit the Philippines really hard. Makati basically became a ghost town because you were further out. Because you were in a, did it affect you as much, or did you manage to kind of work through it? What happened around COVID?
great question. And this is really a proud year or two for our operation. Our employees helped each other so well during that time. Our barangay, which is neighborhood, had a gate locked. You're not going in, you're not going out.
Wow.
And the fact that most of our employees walk here, they were unfazed. They were allowed to still come here to work, fully masked the entire time. The employees that lived outside of the barangay temporarily moved in with other employees and continued coming to work. We've got a
Wow.
four. Yeah, that's what I mean. The teamwork just was magnificent, and we had to house some people here in the center. Um, we've got a 4-story center. We weren't using part of one of the floors, so we set up beds for some people, and they stayed here long periods of time. I mean, that's just what we had to
Wow.
do to continuously keep operating. So others had to close, and that sparked other geographies. The
Mm,
fact that it was, I mean, other places in South America and other parts of the world really picked up business because the Philippines was so strict. I mean,
absolutely.
you're not getting in a car going anywhere during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Makati literally was a ghost town. I saw photos of it and could not believe that it was that city. Um, Talk to me a little about, and I know you've shared a couple of stories before, but I'd love you to share a couple with the listeners about individuals that have been so incredibly impacted by what you do. I remember you talking about one of your building contractors who, because of the work he was doing with you, then had enough money to build his own house. And are there other stories like that too?
That's a great individual. His name's Edgar, and he built us. He worked for us for a long time. He helped build this building. He's helping us with our. We had a construction project on the 4th floor. He's been front and center for all of that. He was kind of a drifter before he worked for us around the neighborhood. He was living in the abandoned homes that were here. He has a family. They were kind of just lost. And he is an expert at building structures the Filipino way. And, pure block moving from here to there, laying blocks, spreading mortar, mixing cement by hand in the street. He is an expert mason, and I can almost promise you he never went to any training facility for that. He learned by doing it,
Yeah.
and he helped build our home. He helped build some other buildings for us too, and for other people in the neighborhood when this building stretch occurred. So he became very successful just starting our BPO operation and building our building. And he eventually got back on his feet, got his own house, and he's constantly building upon it. That's the kind of guy he is. And his wife also works here as well. So him and his wife are both employed here. And he was just caught up in the neighborhood. He just didn't have much to do. He wasn't doing anything. But an individual like that, he's highly skilled. He knows how to build. He knows how to do a lot, jack of all trades when it comes to building. And there's a lot of guys like that kind of just lingering around all over the place in this entire area. And he's just happened to be one that he knew my wife's family, and he was ready for a change, and we were here to help him
Wow.
do that.
Wow. That is such an inspiring story. And for me, that's what impact sourcing is about. There's a lot of lip
Absolutely.
service. There's a lot of ticking boxes. There's a lot of, we employ 0.33% of blah, blah. But, to actually go into a community where you felt unsafe and to develop in that community and therefore develop the community is a great story and so much why I wanted the listeners to hear. On average, and kind of if you can paint a picture for people, because a lot of people haven't spent time in the Philippines, what roughly would be an income for one of your staff, ballpark?
$5,000 to $7,000 annually.
Okay, 5 to 7,000 US annually, great. And before the contact center got there with $6,000 and $7,000 jobs, what would the rest of the town have been earning doing whatever they were doing?
1 to 3, if they're even able to find work.
Wow. So you're essentially talking 2 to 2.5 times, 3 times in some cases, annual income. That's got to have a huge impact.
Well, the kind of work that they're doing is not okay. They're not working for a company. They're not getting their Social Security paid for. They're not getting their health care paid for. They're not getting their what's called a pag-ibig fund. They're not getting all these essentials paid for, and they're only working every now and then. Maybe they'll go clean someone's house every now and then, or maybe they'll cook for a special occasion. It's not regular work, and it's not organized. So the work is that kind of work is totally different, and that's why it's so low, because it's just they literally go around and just do odd jobs. There's a lot of people that do that here, and it's not very secure.
Yeah, man, that's just a fantastic that is just a fantastic thing to be doubling and tripling incomes. No wonder all this retail and everything else has sprung up around it, because now people have got money to spend on fresh meat and they're not just eating noodles and rice. So yeah, that's important stuff.
Now, I want to kind of unpaint a picture. So we're not talking about, when you get the BPOs down in Makati that build a skyscraper. They build a Starbucks nearby. They build a Kenny Rogers chicken place. We don't have any branded establishments here. This is still mom and pop, family investment. All the businesses that sprung up are still, small barangay businesses. A lot of what's called a sari, which is a store built in front of someone's home. So those are the kind of businesses that were built here. So we're not talking about name brand, Dunkin' Donuts. It's still very mom and pop.
But that means the profits, though, are being kept in the community. They're not getting siphoned off the Starbucks, right?
No. We actually have a coffee shop that was just that just came to the neighborhood, and it's kind of a mixture between Starbucks and I don't want to down the place because I think it's fantastic, but it's just kind of a real local version of Starbucks, and they're trying, and it's busy, and the coffees are about as big as the small 8-ounce cup that you used to get at like the a barber shop. But hey, they're making macchiatos, and they're doing the same menu as Starbucks, but it's a total mom and pop operation, and it's great.
That's what you need. So, gaze into your crystal ball for me. Where do you see this going? How big do you think you can get in the town that you're in? And if you got to a big size, is there already thoughts about spawning up in another town?
Well, I don't like to put the cart in front of the horse, and I don't really like to prophesize and think of what you got to think big and plan. But we just purchased another abandoned facility up the street, and we can go to probably 300 agents,
Okay.
and that would be a big impact on this area. I mean, at that amount of people, we're looking at where they're going to live. We're wanting to fill these abandoned homes in this area with our agents. So, I mean, with our growth, we have other impact sourcing ideas to to continuously change this neighborhood for the better. There's still a lot of abandoned homes here that could
Yeah. Wow.
easily be, and we're not talking about, $100,000 homes, 200. We're talking about $10,000 homes
Yeah.
that are available, and we want to help with our construction crew get these things up to shape, get our agents in these homes so they can continue walking to work. So when we do scale and we do get into this other facility, we've got places for our people to stay so that they just
Yeah.
continuously don't have to commute. That's really
Spectacular.
our vision.
Yeah,
So our impact
that's an
sourcing.
amazing vision, an admirable vision, that's for sure.
Well, I
Okay,
highly
there's
value assets.
yeah,
I highly value assets, and I feel that is not being taught to many young people these days. Is to buy a piece of property and get into something that somebody else doesn't want. That's what we want to start pushing, and especially in this neighborhood because it needs it.
yeah, changing lives. All right, we're almost at time. I have 3 questions that I
Okay.
love to ask everybody, and I'm going to ask you these. What makes a great customer experience for you? Nathan, out and about, walking down the street, be that in the Philippines or in Florida, what makes a great experience for you?
A smile, a solution, and something affordable.
No, there's nothing wrong with things being affordable. The second one is, what do you wish more companies were doing right now in this whole CX space? What's missing?
Lack of care. You can just tell that a lot of companies just want to get through the customer and move on to the next one. You feel that in so many ways. And when you don't, okay, lack of care is definitely always present. And the surprising thing is we're used to that as consumers. We're used to just being whatever, But when you get that extra special care, then you notice, wow, this company's totally different. They take the time. They treat me differently. So there's so many companies just treating everyone like numbers. The ones that treat people like people, we need to have more of that.
Yeah. And do you think, just diverting for a bit, do you think that is being driven by just frontline, don't care, too tired, COVID burnt out, whatever, like if we're still beating that horse? Or do you think it's something that comes from above and so it's not being instilled into the front line?
There's a lot of moving parts with the entire. It's turnover. It's
Mm,
it is burnout. Um, it's people that shouldn't be in these positions. Maybe they're forced in these positions, and it's turnover. I mean, when you've got attrition and you're having to retrain 30% of your staff constantly, you're never going to have a good customer experience.
yeah,
So
true.
the whole philosophy of good customer experience comes from good employee experience is very true. So that's really
Yeah,
where it needs to start. Keep your
yeah,
employees employed in the same
yep.
place. Then all things will come together after that.
Okay. And the third question is, what book are you reading right now, or what podcast or document, or what's influencing you these days?
Actually, your book. I
Oh, wow.
purchased I purchased a copy from Amazon, and I've read bits and pieces of it, and I want to read that book from front to back. So I'm gonna plug your book if it even needs it, because everyone is talking about it. Your artificial intelligence book. I have a copy of that, and I really like it. It's great. As you said, demystifying what artificial intelligence is.
Well, thank you. At least now I know who was the one person that bought it on Amazon. So it was you. I'm only kidding. Look, it's been a fantastic chat, Nathan. I always enjoy talking with you. You're so positive. On behalf of those people that live in that area of the Philippines, I want to thank you for being a visionary and changing their lives. And I tell you, you're setting the bar really high for your other fellow BPOs to really talk about impact sourcing. So well done. And thanks for being on CX Sessions.
Simon, thank you so much for having me, and I really hope if somebody hears, what we've done, I hope somebody copies it and just does it themselves. And I really, really appreciate you helping spread awareness for this mentality. And it's a constant mentality that you just kind of thrive on. So thank you.
No problem. And if people want to get hold of you, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
247secretary.com. Nathan Muniz on LinkedIn. If I like you, I will respond. No, I'm just kidding.
I like that. All right. Thanks again, Nathan. We'll chat soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's it for this session. Let us know what you think or recommend someone for a future session at cxii.com.au. This podcast is brought to you by the Customer Experience Innovation Institute. Thanks for joining us, and tune in again soon to hear more CX sessions.